Hey everyone, and since Toy Story 4 is coming out this Friday, and it is a new Pixar movie, I have decided to do a special top 10 list for today, my top 10 favorite Pixar movies. I think Pixar is a fantastic animation studio that have made so many great movies over the years. And I've actually wanted to do this list last year, around when Incredibles 2 was coming out both in theaters and around the time when it was coming out on Blu-ray. But life events kept getting in the way for me to make that video, and my motivation to make that video died down, but not this time. I've been gaining confidence and excitement to make this video, and I'm ready to make this video. I just want to say I don't really want to update this list by the time Toy Story 4 comes out, and just in case they make another great movie after Toy Story 4. I wanted to make this video both for fun and to show my love for Pixar. You know how many great movies they made over the years. One final thing, this is all entirely my opinion. These are my favorite Pixar movies, and I want to hear your favorite Pixar movies in the comments. Top 5, top 10? Let me know below. I'm interested to hear. With that out of the way, let's begin. These are my top 10 favorite Pixar movies, but first, 2 honorable mentions. First honorable mention is their most recent film, Incredibles 2, which was a ton of fun. It was definitely worth the 14-year wait. Very exciting and satisfying sequel. Terrific animation. Really love seeing Elastigirl given more to do, along with the family, Violet, Dash, and Jack Jack. And also, Jack Jack fighting the raccoon. Love that scene. However, my issue with this sequel is the villain, not quite as strong as Syndrome, and was a bit predictable to who that villain was, but still a very good sequel. Really happy we got this sequel 14 years later. Second honorable mention is another sequel, Finding Dory. A very funny and entertaining sequel that is just as heartfelt and funny as the first movie. Beautifully animated and has wonderful characters from both old and new. Really enjoyed this sequel too. And those honorable mentions out of the way, let's begin the top 10 list. At number 10 is Pixar's second film after Toy Story, and this was the film to prove that Pixar is not a one-hit wonder, A Bug's Life. This was a movie I enjoyed watching as a kid, and I still enjoy it to this day. The animation is still good 20 years later. I can't believe this film is 20 years old, and it still looks good today. I like the characters, Flick, Ada, and Dot. But my favorite characters in this movie are Hopper, being one of my favorite Pixar villains. I remember that he frightened me as a kid. It was just like, ooh, this guy was not messing around. He is one of my favorite Pixar villains and definitely one of their most menacing ones. But most of all, my favorite characters in this movie, the circus bugs. These characters are comedic gold. They are hilarious. I love their personalities. How did these characters not get a spin-off movie or TV show? I would definitely watch either one of those. Bug's Life is still funny, entertaining, colorful, and still a good film 20 years later. Coming in at number 9 is WALL-E. It was interesting to see Pixar make a sci-fi movie, and along with adding a beautiful romance to the film with WALL-E and Eve. I especially loved the first half of this movie, with visual storytelling, not a lot of dialogue. I love the scenes where both WALL-E and Eve are interacting. I thought those scenes were wonderful. While I do agree that the second act where we get to Axiom wasn't quite as strong as the first half, but I still thought it was entertaining. And it was also interesting to see Pixar make a likable and innocent protagonist and also a robot character, WALL-E, and he is just adorable. I love WALL-E. 10 years later, I still love this little robot. He is one of my favorite Pixar protagonists. I enjoyed WALL-E as a kid, and I continue to love it 10 years later, and I can't believe this film is 10 years old now. Oh my god. I love the animation, the music, the characters. I still love this movie. Coming in at number 8 is Coco. This is definitely one of Pixar's heartfelt and touching animated films. The animation in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. Especially when Miguel arrives at the Day of the Dead and just the scenery. Oh my god, that is absolutely breathtaking. My favorite shot in any Pixar movie. It is just so gorgeous. And the animation along with the detail, it's just marvelous. And the great characters too, Miguel being a likable protagonist. Even with his flaws of trying to follow his dreams, but along with the consequences too, I still thought he was a likable character. At the same time, you do feel like you want him to know about the consequences, but at the same time, you want to see him follow his dreams. And also a great villain of Ernesto de la Cruz, and this is one of the twist villains that Disney has been doing recently. And I think this is one of the few times where I felt like a twist villain actually worked well into the story and the villain was good. And since this film is about music, there's some great music in this movie. Un Poco Loco, which is stuck in my head, and also Remember Me, and especially in the ending with Remember Me. Oh, what a sad ending. That is one of my favorite Pixar endings. Just, very heartfelt scene. Almost got me teary-eyed. And I also really like how this film deals with themes of family and following your dreams and even the consequences of that. I really like how they handle those themes maturely, doing a very good job with those. And Coco is not only another fantastic film in Pixar's filmography, a fantastic film in general. At number 7 is Pixar film that came out after Cars, which I thought was good, but not quite as strong as their previous films. This film put him back on track. Ratatouille. Now, when you really think about it, this film is about a rat who becomes a chef in Paris, France. Really, Pixar? Now that premise just seems absolutely ridiculous. Would not work in a million years, but they somehow did. They somehow took a premise about a rat becoming a chef and made it work so very well. Again, like Coco, this also deals with the themes of following your dreams and doing a very good job with that, along with making a very likable protagonist too. Remy, also being one of my favorite Pixar protagonists, really like him. And this is Brad Bird's second Pixar film after The Incredibles. He definitely knows how to make entertaining animated movies, great for kids and adults too. This is one of those films where I enjoyed it as a kid, but when the years go on, I started to appreciate this film more as an adult and start to really love this film. And Pixar absolutely nailed the beautiful scenery of Paris. My favorite shot in this movie was Remy sitting down and taking a look at France. Beautiful. That is one of my favorite shots in any Pixar movie. And probably my favorite character in this movie was Anton Ego, the food critic. Not only do I love his design, but I also like how he's intimidating, and yet I don't really think he's the villain of this movie. I just think he's a bit of a misguided person than a villain in my opinion. And I love his ending speech in this movie of anyone can cook at the end of this movie. I love that. Just great. Ratatouille is one of my favorite Pixar films, as well as being my favorite film of 2007, and it is a great movie. Coming in at number 6 is one of Pixar's more emotional films, and a bit of a hint there since it's about emotions, Inside Out. This is honestly one of Pixar's most creative films to date. Taking a premise about emotions inside your head and doing it in such a creative way, it is just absolutely marvelous how well this film was executed. Just a unique and creative world building and the adventure that both joy and sadness as well as Bing Bong go on while they're out of headquarters, and I just love how creative and unique this film was. Every time I watch this movie, I'm just in complete awe. It's just like, Pixar, you're just so creative. And I love the characters too. I love joy, sadness, anger, fear, disgust. I love them too, as well as Bing Bong. And thinking about that one scene with Bing Bong, aww. But what I love about Inside Out is not only is this film entertaining and funny and very well written, but I also like how it maturely handles the themes of sadness and teaching kids sometimes it's okay to be sad. And along with bringing joy too, sometimes you can have both joy in your life and sadness in your life, and handling those themes excellently makes me love this movie. And this is one of the Pixar films I want a sequel to. I want a franchise to. I really want to see a sequel to this movie. I want to see more of the world building. Maybe there could be more emotions to this. What if we could see Riley grow up? I want to see more of this. I love these characters. I want to see more of this. Please, Pixar, make a sequel to this movie. Inside Out is funny, very well written, unique, and creative film that I absolutely adore. My favorite film of 2015. I really wish this film was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. Major snub there, but at least it won Best Animated Film, so there's that. But Inside Out, fantastic. And now we're getting into the top 5, and at number 5 is one of my childhood favorites and the films I watched many times as a kid, Finding Nemo. I absolutely love Finding Nemo, from its terrific animation that still holds up well years later, the memorable characters, it's funny. I just love this movie so much. And I'm just amazed, just the excellent underwater animation just holds up well for a movie that came out in 2003 and it looks very great today. The memorable jokes in this movie, whether it's the seagull saying, "Mine, mine, shark bait, hoo-ah," or Dory speaking well, or I don't know if I can imitate that. I'm not even gonna try that, no. I don't know. That's the best I can do. And also Dory being one of the funniest animated characters in any Pixar movie, and Ellen DeGeneres was just the perfect voice for that character. I love her as Dory. And like always, Pixar just does very well with the heartfelt messages of like growing up and maturing a bit with like Nemo and Marlin. Although Marlin is very overprotective of Nemo, you at least understand where he's coming from with like what happened to his wife at the beginning of this movie. And it was interesting to see him grow as a character and become a likable character at the end of this movie. Finding Nemo is a film I loved as a kid and will continue to love it for years to come. And at number 4, I talked about Brad Bird's second Pixar film he made, and now the first Pixar film he made, The Incredibles. I really love that Brad Bird took the advantage of making a superhero movie but with a family in it. I really liked it. I love the characters in this movie of the family and their different superpowers. I really like this family and I love seeing their unique superpowers with Elastigirl, Violet, and Dash, and Jack Jack at the end of this movie. Just him fighting Syndrome. That was awesome. And with some terrific action scenes in this movie, especially my favorite being the jungle fight. That was awesome. I really like that Brad Bird can direct action in both animation and live action, and I'm really glad that he got the chance to direct one of the Mission Impossible movies, Ghost Protocol, and doing an amazing job with that. And one of my favorite Pixar villains, if not my favorite Pixar villain, definitely in the top 3, Syndrome. Not only funny and a bit intimidating, but you do understand his backstory, and he wanted to help Mr. Incredible, but he was constantly rejected by Mr. Incredible and doesn't trust him anymore, and years later they reunite, but he's a super villain, and you do at least understand why Syndrome doesn't like Mr. Incredible. Syndrome is definitely one of the more memorable Pixar villains. I love Syndrome so much. Yeah, and this was Pixar's first PG movie, and it definitely earned it. There were some serious things in this movie that happened. It was just like, oh. When I was watching this film as a kid, I was always entertained by this movie and enjoyed it, but years later I started to like appreciate more things about this movie than I was as a kid. This movie was darker than I remembered. The Incredibles is a very entertaining film. Memorable characters, awesome action, animation that still looks pretty good today. I really love The Incredibles and really glad we got the sequel 14 years later. Hopefully they make Incredibles 3 in the future, but we'll see. Love The Incredibles. And at number 3 is probably my biggest childhood favorite, Monsters, Inc. What I really like about Monsters, Inc. is Pixar taking the premise of Monster scaring kids when they go to sleep and making it their jobs. I thought it was executed very well, along with the great world building in this movie and the terrific and the unique designs of the monsters in this movie, like either the fur, textures, with other details too. This animation still looks really good for a film that came out in 2001. 18 years, still looks great. And the friendship between Sully and Boo was very touching. I always get sad in the scene where Sully accidentally scares Boo. Boo was right there and Sully scared her. That scene broke my heart, still does. It broke my heart as a kid and still does as an adult. And also when Sully says goodbye to her and Kitty has to go. Aww. And this is the Pixar film I want a sequel to. Well, this film got a prequel, Monsters University, of how Mike and Sully met, and I like that movie, but I really want to see a sequel to this movie. Maybe Boo could grow up. Would she still remember Sully or anything? Would she still remember Sully? Would she tell a lot of people that there are monsters that exist? I really want to see a sequel to this movie. I feel like it has a lot of potential. And the great voice cast too of John Goodman as Sully, Billy Crystal as Mike Wazowski, and Steve Buscemi as Randall. Great voice cast in this movie. And Monsters, Inc. is definitely one of my favorite Pixar movies. Fantastic movie. Now at the number 2 spot, and I'm not going to put like one film, not 2, 3 films. the Toy Story trilogy. I didn't want to have these films like spread out through the list. I wanted to put these films at like one spot. The first Toy Story movie was revolutionary in CGI animation. And looking back on Toy Story, well, say whatever you want about the animation, how it looks today, good or bad. I don't know where CGI animation would be without the first Toy Story. Where it would go on, it was definitely revolutionary for its time. Along with it being a very funny and entertaining film with memorable characters and great voice cast. Both Tom Hanks as Woody and Tim Allen as Buzz Lightyear are both terrific. And also a great rivalry between Woody and Buzz. The jealousy between those two. Woody was Andy's favorite toy, but Buzz Lightyear comes and replaces Woody, and definitely see the jealousy between the two. And luckily both of them grow throughout the movie and become likable characters. And as for Toy Story 2, I think it's better than the first movie. Definitely has better animation, brought in great new characters like Jessie and Bullseye, along with adding the same humor and charm as the first movie and being an amazing animated sequel. And my favorite of the trilogy, Toy Story 3. An emotionally satisfying end to the franchise. Well, Toy Story 4 is on its way, but it was still an emotionally powerful and satisfying ending. It was heartbreaking to see Andy grow up and about to head off to college, and especially heartbreaking at the end of the movie when he gave away his toys, which makes me cry. And my favorite Pixar villain to date, Lotso, being both a heartbreaking but also a compelling villain. That he was accidentally lost by his owner, but found out he was replaced. Very sad backstory. And also, this film was not afraid to be intense, especially with the scene at the furnace. Man, this film got intense. But luckily the toys ended up being saved, but still, that scene was quite intense. And also still having the same humor and charm as the first two movies, and especially when Buzz Lightyear turned Spanish, which was really funny. All three Toy Story movies are phenomenal animated movies, and I'm looking forward to seeing Toy Story 4. And here we are, my number one favorite Pixar movie of all time. And the film I recently did a review on for its 10-year anniversary. My favorite Pixar movie of all time is Up. Not only one of my favorite animated films of all time, my favorite Pixar film of all time, my favorite film of 2009, one of my favorite films of all time. The absolutely fantastic opening of this movie, Carl and Ellie's married life, how beautiful that scene is, how this film is both a touching drama as well as being a fun adventure. Great characters too. I love Carl Fredricksen, Russell, Kevin, Doug, and a great villain, Charles Muntz. I love these characters so much, and I love seeing them go on this adventure. The fantastic animation, the touching emotion, it's funny, along with Michael Giacchino's excellent musical score in this movie, especially Married Life, which is phenomenal. And also the scene where Carl Fredricksen read Ellie's adventure book near the waterfall of Paradise Falls. The amount of emotion in that scene, how perfectly paced it is absolutely incredible. Overall, Up is an absolutely incredible movie. I love this movie so much. One of my favorite films of all time. And my favorite Pixar film ever. Wow. That is it. So many great films Pixar has made throughout the years. And I can't wait to see Toy Story 4. Hopefully that will be good. Especially since currently it has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Making me even more excited to see this film. I can't wait for Toy Story 4, as well as their new film next year, Onward. That looks very interesting. And I'd like to hear from you guys. What are your favorite Pixar films? Top 5? Top 10? Let me know below. And also make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you're new here. It really means a lot. I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.